Chapter 6 I Want Something in a Cage. This story is about an owner of a pet shop named Mr. Purcell who meets a strange customer one day who wants to buy something in a cage. The shopkeeper is shocked by the unique demand. So, was he able to fulfill the demand? And what happened after that? Let's read the story and find it out. Mr. Purcell was a small, fuzzy man who did not believe in ghosts and was the owner of a pet shop. He had red cheeks and a tight melon-like big round stomach. He wore large glasses which increased the size of his eyes. This gave him the appearance of a wise and a friendly owl. Mr. Purcell sold pets ranging from cats and dogs to monkeys. He dealt in fish food and bird seed. He prescribed medicine for ailing canaries, and he had on display various cages, highly decorated, and a few were covered with thin layers of gold or other precious metals. There was always some noise in the shop. This was created by the sounds of different animals on the shop. The birds made chirpings, cheeps, squeals, and sudden squeaks while moving inside the cage, and the tiny feet inside the cage ran around in fear. There was a constant movement of life on the shelves, but the customers who came did not care about the animals' movements. They would look at the animals and say how cute the animals looked. Mr. Purcell, in response to these comments, would smile, rub his hands, and shake his head. Mr. Purcell had a habit of doing something after the routine of opening his shop was completed. Each morning, he would sit on a high stool behind the counter, unfold the morning paper, and read and understand the day's news. While reading, he would smirk, frown, purse his lips, knowingly lift his eyebrows, and nod in agreement. He would read everything, including the section in the newspaper which gives advice to those people who are unhappy and unlucky in getting into a relationship. He also read the detailed columns of advertisements. The day when the strange customer came to the shop was a rough day, with strong wind blowing. The city looked dark and bleak. There was smoke and thick frost in the air. The various noises of the animals could be heard in the shop, but Mr. Purcell gave no attention to these sounds. He did not find something unusual in those sounds. He had heard these sounds so much that these noises became as familiar as the ticking of a clock. There was a bell over the door which was the entrance to the shop for the customers. The bell would jingle whenever a customer entered the shop. That morning was the first time the bell did not ring. He simply looked up and saw that there was a stranger standing just inside the door. Since the bell did not ring and the stranger's entry caused no noise, Mr. Purcell felt as if the stranger had suddenly appeared out of the thin air. Mr. Purcell slipped from his stool. He somehow knew from the first look that the stranger disliked him. However, as he was the owner of the shop, so he smiled and nodded his head. He greeted the customer with a radiant, bright and charming smile. He then asked the stranger what he could do for him. The man's shiny shoes made sound as he walked further into the shop. The suit that the man was wearing was cheap and had an ill fitting, but it was new. His hair was cut very short. He ignored Mr. Purcell and looked here and there around the shop. Mr. Purcell again tried to have a conversation with the stranger. He grasped his melon-like stomach tightly with his hands and smiled as if the stranger was important for him. He said that he saw that day's newspaper in which he read that the citizens of the city were going to face cold weather. Then he asked again the customer what he wanted to have. The stranger stared at Mr. Purcell as if he had seen him just then and was not aware of the owner's presence till now. He then answered Mr. Purcell's question, saying that he wanted something that was kept in a cage. Mr. Purcell was a bit confused when he heard the man's reply. He asked again if the man wanted a pet. The man got angry at him. He repeated his demand, adding that whatever he wanted in the cage should also be small in size. Mr. Purcell quickly said yes and pretended that he understood the order even though he was not at all certain that he did. Mr. Purcell started focusing on finding the right animal for the customer. He then thought about it. He asked if the man wanted a white rat. He also said that he had some very nice white rats. The man told Mr. Purcell that he did not want rats. He added that he wanted an animal that had wings, something which had the ability to fly. Mr. Purcell suggested that it could be a bird. The man approved this. The man then pointed suddenly to a cage which was hanging from the ceiling. The cage contained 2 doves which were as white as snow. He then asked how much the pair cost. Mr. Purcell quickly told the price to be $5.50. The man was disappointed to know the price. He took out a $5 bill from his pocket and told him that he would like to have the doves, but he only have $5. Mr. Purcell did a quick mental calculation and he got to know that a discount of 50 cents would not harm his business. Even with the reduction, he would earn a good profit. He then smiled. Mr. Purcell told the customer that if he wanted to have the pair of doves so desperately, he could have it for just $5. The man said that he would take them and he laid the $5 on the counter. Mr. Purcell took out the cage and handed to the customer. The man was listening to the noise of the animals. Then he asked Mr. Purcell if the noises were not distracting him. Mr. Purcell looked surprised because he did not really know what the man was talking about. He was so used to the noise of the caged animals that he did not find the noise to be disturbing. The man pointed out the caged animals and asked if their noise drove him crazy. Mr. Purcell was shocked and scared. He felt that the man was either drunk or mad. He lied to the man and said that yes, the noise did drive him crazy. The man was still staring at Mr. Purcell. He then asked him to guess how long it took the man to earn the $5 note. Mr. Purcell was afraid of the customer's weird behavior. He wanted to order or command the man to get out of his shop, but he could not do so. He finally asked him how long it took. The man laughed and answered that it took 10 years of hard work to earn $5. He earned only 50 cents a year. Mr. Purcell laughed. Then he said that 10 years was certainly a long time. Then he decided to talk about something else. The man interrupted Mr. Purcell and continued the same topic. He laughed and said that the people gave him $5 and a cheap suit in exchange for him not getting caught again. Mr. Purcell wiped off the sweat from his eyebrows. He was scared of the man. He again tried to change the topic. He started talking about the process of caring and feeding the doves. The man again interrupted him, saying that he did not care about the care and feeding of the doves. The man turned around and suddenly walked out of the store. Mr. Purcell sighed with sudden relief. He walked in short steps and clumsily up to the window and stared at the customer through it. He saw that the strange customer had stopped walking and was standing just outside the shop. He had held the cage at shoulder height. He was staring at his purchased 2 snowy doves. He then opened the cage, reached inside and threw both the doves in the air. The doves rose in the air like light balls of fur. After a while, they could not be seen in the smoky air of the wintry city. The stranger was a liberator, as he liberated 2 birds. At first, he was just looking at the birds. Then, he dropped the cage. With his hands pushed inside his pockets, he dropped his head down and walked away. Mr. Purcell's brow was contracted as he was totally confused. He did not understand why the man had freed the doves. After all, he had been so desperate to buy them. Mr. Purcell had even reduced the price for him. But he let them loose. Mr. Purcell asked himself why he had done that. Why did the man give away all his earnings of 10 years of hard work just to let it go away from him? He did not understand this and he felt insulted by this behavior. So this was the story, and there are few things we need to discuss. So first of all, the man had lost his 10 years in prison without freedom. When he saw the caged birds in the shop, he felt himself in place of them. He had only $5, so he bought a pair of doves and let them fly happily in the sky. On the other hand, Mr. Purcell was unaware that the pets in his shop were screaming for freedom. He thought of himself as a professional and held the pets' freedom inside the gilded cages. He was only concerned about the profit he would earn after selling the pets. Later, Mr. Purcell felt insulted with the man's behavior. The man freed the birds as he knew the true value of the freedom. But Mr. Purcell only desired to make profit even though it costed someone's freedom. The chapter thus teaches us that every living being or animal should be given their freedom, and everyone's freedom should be equally valued by us. So I hope you all liked the story and you must have understood the value of freedom.